Okay. This is in fulfillment of my web interview for the Big 5 questions relating to Common Core. Here is Casey Cavanis, former band director for my children, now band director at our local high school, and former Marine. Lauren, who is a mom and a college instructor as well. My friend Doug Knapp, who is a mental health professional, a life and health coach, as well as a grandfather. I think we have a broad spectrum here of perspectives on Common Core, and I have instructors as well as parents, because parents don't always understand the Common Core, instructors don't always understand the Common Core, and I didn't want it to be a requirement because I think it needs to be taken from all perspectives. So Casey, we'll start with you. As a band director, how does band influence a student's success in other areas of education?
I've always felt that band is a microcosm of real life. You got groups of people that come from lots of money, groups of people from no money, people with good work ethic, people that just hang on, and some you got to drag all the way around. It teaches them how to interact and work with everybody towards a common goal. Because when you get a job, that's what you're supposed to be able to do. For a band, it's just putting on a product, whether it's the marching band show, a concert program, or an indoor program, or just a solo and ensemble. They have to learn to work with each other. And then by that process of setting aside that time, properly learning, hey, I've got to divide my time, hey, I got to practice 30 minutes, and then I want to do this, it helps them come up with ways that they can, meet all the criteria they want to do, but still have the time to have fun and laugh and cut up. Because if you take life too serious, it's just, you're sad. We laughed a lot in the band all day long.
Oh, I wish you could.
You gotta laugh.
That is absolutely the truth. And I know that music also helps with linguistics and math. It's very
But I agree with all that, but it's also the working with it, I think is more important than all that. All the studies are out there, it helps the math score, it helps all that, the being a band, working with all that, but I think it's more, no matter what you do, if the kid doesn't have a direction, it doesn't matter what they're involved in.
So would you say that band allows us to more fully address the college/career ready aspect of what Common Core is supposed to be doing for us?
Okay, in that sense, yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's more, Common Core should be geared towards more life skills.
Exactly.
Being able to support yourself and your family, not end up on welfare. And I never would say do the jobs, which I get, but there's plenty of jobs out there with people who are like, I don't want to do that. They haven't found that passion of providing and helping each other.
Okay, awesome. Lauren, as a computer professional who also teaches, how does technology affect a student's success in other areas?
There are two schools of thought on technology. One is less is more, and one is more. As far as teaching, there are some people that think that technology needs to be in front of them all day, every day. Prime example, New York City schools are going 100% Chromebook next year, so that every student has a machine. I personally take the less is more approach. Yes, I teach computers, and yes, they're useful, but there needs to be some time where you're away from technology.
Okay, so would you say that the written word and like print, as well as the written word by hand, is equally as important as technology for allowing a student to progress?
Absolutely, absolutely. Even personally, even though I'm a technology person, I still take notes. I still write things down sometimes. I still have a paper calendar as well as my calendar on my phone.
Yeah, because we all know technology never breaks, right?
Nope, never.
Doug is a mental health professional, an educator, because you've recently started teaching as well, and I know we teach as mental health professionals, and a life nutrition coach. How does your experience with the adults, especially nutrition-wise and mental health-wise, reflect needed changes in our education?
I think probably one of the biggest things I see is that they don't know how to function as just a rounded person. Just being able to do, and I think you mentioned the life skill kind of thing. They don't know how to live life, you know. They may be able to use a computer, but, you know, how do you communicate with someone else, or how do you get involved with someone else and be in a healthy relationship or something like that? I think those things are just, it's ignored.
Okay.
Can I piggyback on that? I
Yeah.
say it all the time. Kids don't know how to talk to each other anymore. There is no communication
No.
skills.
They talk at each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the only way they communicate is through text, but words on all the text, the drama that gets caused from somebody sending a text, you don't know what the meaning of it is.
Well, you don't hear
Right.
the inflection,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
you don't hear that.
Well, there's something called porosity in reading where kids are taught tone, inflection, pause, diction, and things that our generation grew up with. So I completely agree. I think without this addressing those issues, we're really going to have some issues. And you and I will be busy the rest of our lives. There's no retirement, though. I'm
You're
sorry.
right, you're right.
Casey, as a parent, how do you feel like you influence your child's success at school?
A balance.
Okay.
Being active in church. You know, is first, you know, I think that's an outlet because they're around other people that have that, and then from a different mindset, being active in an extracurricular. You know, those kids, I've watched too many kids sit there on the, I call them the flotsam and the jetsam, the stuff that floats behind the boats out at sea, that just don't do anything. They show up at school and then they go home. They have nothing. They're not involved in anything. You know, motivating the child, my son, I failed. I mean, every parent, there's not a perfect parent out there. You know, he's brought in bad grades. I've had to take away his computer and his phone, which for him is, oh, he can't do that. It's like, you know, that's his drug of choice, is his computer and the game system. So when you take away that, then it's like, then I show him, you know, you can make good grades. You can be successful. You just got to balance your time. You know, then give it back to him. And then he's good for a while. Then it's like you rip it away again because he falls on himself. And the other thing is just to be involved in their life. Not to be one of those parents that just like, oh, okay, drop you off. Because how many, it hurt me. Every year when we'd have senior night, I was somebody's father, uncle, mom, because the parents didn't bother to show up it would never show up for anything. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's just to be involved in your kid's life. No, don't be a helicopter parent. You know, hovering over them all the time, especially the older they get, you've got to give them the rope to go out there and make their mistakes, and you can't go back in and say, what'd you learn? Okay, don't make the same mistake.
You know, earlier we were talking about how all you did was show up for Aaron. You know, I mean, we needed that, and I appreciate that from a parent standpoint, because as a teacher, certainly your job ends at 3:30. But unfortunately, the job doesn't end at 4:30. That's why I did one of these, because I know it doesn't end there. Well, Lauren, how about you? How do you influence?
Like Casey said, support and balance, but most of all, just setting an expectation. I mean, the expectation is different than her father's. And we had to have that discussion where, you know, his parents expected him to have all A's. There was no question. It didn't matter. You were going to have an A, period. My oldest is not a student. She's not. She's not a book learner. She's creative and she does all that other stuff. So I'm okay with a B and a C. I'm okay with that because I know, as long as I know she's doing her best, I'm good.
Exactly.
And you know, Doug, we're grandparents, and you know, we're only sometimes influencing. So how are you influencing?
I just think that's a whole different ball game, and it's the best ball game I've ever been to. I've told lots of people that my being a grandpa is probably the best job I've ever had. But I think that my just showing up is something that's important. And I know that when one of them calls me and says, Grandpa, I'm playing at the Sportsplex this weekend, can you come? You bet. You bet. Because that's what, he wants me there. He wants me there. And I have step-grandchildren, and I'm trying to do that with them, but it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Because there's girls, and I don't know how to deal with girl grandchildren. I've got 6 grandsons.
You buy the pretty stuff, baby dolls.
Well, one of them's like that, and the other one's kind of, she'll fit in with the boys okay. It's that one prissy one that I just have a real difficult time with. But she's trying. Last night I was at something that she was there. Her stepdad, my son, was playing in a charity basketball game, and her mom said she got a black eye. She's like 12, and she was practicing to try out for the tryouts of the softball team. It got a black eye, and she said, and then didn't make the team either. So that was pretty tough. But yeah, I think just me showing up is probably the best influence that I can have.
Okay.
And plus the kids will kind of they'll probably go to y'all, Mom and Dad don't listen, they're not understanding me. They could be able to come to you and go like, well, and you can go like, okay, I get it, but listen, this is, and you can guide them back into the way of seeing things from a different set of eyes, because you know, they know y'all are going to love them unconditionally. You're not that tyrant telling them what to do all the time.
Exactly. I can remember my one grandson used to call, just hysterical. Can you come and get me? Can you come and get me? And I could hear my son in the background, tell him what you did. Tell him what you did. But they'd always let me come and get him.
Well, earlier, before we sat down to talk, we were talking a little bit about Common Core and how it's designed for lowest expectations, hopefully to reach higher expectations, and to help all children succeed. So, and this was the one question that stuck with me probably out of all of them that I had to write. How does Common Core affect your curriculum in band?
Well, it's like I said before, there are areas of Common Core that I like, but I think it's the implementation. Trying to ramrod, every kid is a different thinker with the differentiated instruction, which band directors do, and choir directors and theater teachers do all the time. It's no big deal for us because we're having to, okay, this one's not getting it. We always got 3 or 4 different ways to get it. And I understand it's great to do it in the classroom, but setting the standards where you want the kids, you're not always going to, every kid's not going to be an advanced kid. They're just not. There's some classes that they're going to excel in. Like for me, math, history, and science, I love those. Hated English. I hated it. I always carried a B in that class, had A's and everything else. You know, does that make me a bad person? Does that? No. I don't speak very well with that, but I can sure write and compose music and arrange music and teach kids how to play and perform. So I think that's where the problem with Common Core is that it's the implementation of expectation of every kid's got to get here. We need to go back to thinking, let's make sure that, okay, if the child starts here, let's at least get him up to here. So then that way, next year when he comes back after 3 months off, he'll start here and they can keep growing that child.
Well, and it's written for only one kind of learner.
Right.
Well, one of the things that I have discovered, especially in Professor Rhone's class, is that using multimedia, letting a child communicate and understand words and print and storylines through the way that they understand it, whether it's through music or for, like your baby's dance or baseball, is really important, because I might not know the word for how to do a plie, but maybe I know the action. And, you know, I play piano, and, you know, I know, well, our band kids, my kids will come home and go, that is very forte. I'll go, what? And they'll say, yes, we have to play it forte. Well, what does forte mean? And so they're learning not just a different word, they're learning a different language, they're learning how to express differently. And so I think that portion of Common Core should be brought out more. Because if you have a kid who relates through band, through listening, through music, or dance, allow them to express that written word that way. And I think those B's and that English that we all dread is gonna.
Well, the big thing is too, that, like she said, every kid doesn't learn the same way. Everyone is,
Exactly.
you're not gonna have, everyone's gonna be such a literal talker. You're gonna have those that are gonna be more expressive, they wanna draw more. Like, I got tons of kids that are great drawers, you know, in the past. You know, and they would express how they're feeling through that. Or, you know, we've had some that they write real well and they can express it. Others like to build stuff. I think part of the problem with Common Core in our education system, and as a band director, I love block scheduling, because you get those kids in there at the high school level for an hour and a half, you can do a lot of work. I don't like how long our classrooms are, because kids get tired and if you hit them over and over and over. I hate it as a college student, a Tuesday, Thursday class for an hour and a half, you know, because it's mentally taxing to sit there and listen for an hour and a half to something going on. I mean, I've always advocated, let's extend the day a little bit and extend, but you always get that, oh, you can't take away summer break. Well, why not? There's nothing that says we have to have that long. I mean, mentally, I know why teachers like that, but why not expand it? Make it smaller time frames. Let them make the school year go a little bit later. I guarantee you, our grades on our kids' academics will go up because they're less stressed.
And retention.
Right.
Retention of
You lose
information
them after
over.
like 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean.
Well, even adults, you and I
Yeah.
have the same
Oh, yeah,
students.
yeah.
You have got to change it up, and, you know, in a 2-hour class with adults, we take a
We
10-minute
take a
break.
break.
You have to.
Yeah. So as educators with Common Core at the college level, that does not impact college level currently, meaning.
Yet, we don't have any of the students that have gone through Common Core. Well, except I may have a couple this term, because Gulfport started implementation for Mississippi.
Yeah, but that's
They
2
piloted
years
it.
ago.
2 years ago.
I
Yeah.
would
Right,
say
and I
that's-
was in the district then.
Right.
So some of them may have graduated by now, but,
In the next couple of years, we will.
oh yeah, definitely. But I think it's totally down to implementation. I have now 6th grader, she was in 5th grade last year. I've taught 5th grade. I know 5th grade math. And for her to come home and tell me, no, that's not how you do it. In math, there's more than one way to solve a problem last time I checked. But it gets marked wrong because it wasn't the way the teacher taught it, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I
1
think.
plus 1 will always equal 2. I don't care how you try to digress, it's 1 plus 1 equals 2.
And I think it's a lack of understanding how to implement what the standards are asking. And I think the more creatively that teachers are allowed to implement that program that we're trying to indoctrinate, and that's what it is, I think we're gonna find more and more success.
I'm gonna be real honest, I'm really ignorant about the Common Core, but I've heard the things like the math, and I've seen that, and I agree that 1 plus 1 is always gonna equal 2. And I guess that kind of stuff scares me, but when you just said, you know, if the teacher's gonna be allowed to be creative in how they teach that, I think that's important. I think that's important, because I think if just at Miller Mott, if they said, okay, you have to stand up there and do this, 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 and this, I wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be there. And I don't remember seeing teachers when I was in school being as comfortable at the front of the classroom as I am sitting on a desk, you know, teaching.
Yeah.
Instead of standing up and you know, I just think that's kind of stuff is important.
Yeah, that sage on the stage crap stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that leads into what we can add to the current
Real quick
standards.
on that though, but I think Common Core is expecting too much early on. When you have 1st grade and 2nd grade that are doing stuff that when we were in there, that basically we didn't hit to the second half of 2nd year of 2nd grade, that they want these kids to be done by 1st grade, thinking it's gonna make them better. You know, it's not. And the art of writing, especially cursive writing, is not taught anymore because there's not time for it. Because we have to teach to the test to make sure for our M-STAR evaluation, did we punch every ticket when we were evaluated, which is, you know, I get they want to make sure that they have qualified teachers in the classroom.
Right.
Because we all know that there are teachers that are just way up here,
Mhm.
and then you got a lot of them that are right in here, And then you got that lower 10% that, hey, I'm riding this out till I am gone because I only have 3 or 4 years left, and I'm just going to sit in the back of the class and just hand out stuff. We've all had teachers like that. But it shouldn't have to be, if you don't hit every of those benchmarks, you're not a quality teacher. Wrong. Because you can touch a kid in so many different ways, even if you don't hit all those benchmarks, as long as that child is better from day one to the end of the year. It's just like a band. Did we grow? We may not win every contest, but did we grow this year as musicians? Did we grow this year as a group of people working well together? How are our organization skills? How's our leadership skills? You know, it's the same thing in a classroom. Did they learn more words? I mean, I think Ocean Springs, when they go into, come into first grade, they have what's called the popcorn words that come out of kindergarten.
Right.
You know, they have to know all these words before they come in. Okay, I get that, but maybe they don't have a parent at home, and that's where the big thing is, in order for it to really truly work, it's got to come back on the parents. I don't care what anybody says, if the parent's not involved with the kid's not going to be successful. When the government can shove down our throat their implementation, all they want, unless the parents are at home,
You're right.
going over the work at them, and I get that they're single family homes. I have a single family home, but we still find that time to talk and communicate. I'm lucky that my kid's in the high school. I don't know what I would be doing as a single parent of an elementary kid.
Well, and I have a first grader, and they told us the first implementation of school, the first time they take their 9 weeks test, they get to read the passages to them. Guess what? Second time, they have to be able to read it themselves. In first grade, when they have come in, knowing those, like you said, popcorn words, sight words, whatever you want to call them, that's the kind of reader she was coming into first grade, but by the second 9 weeks, she has to be able to read the entire test and take it herself.
Yeah, well,
That's
just
ludicrous.
That's ridiculous.
I just stayed with three of my grandsons for like 3 days, a couple weeks ago. And my one grandson is in first grade. And the homework that he brought home was that he had to read these 3 books. And I was shocked at how good he was reading. I mean, it amazed me.
But, and he may be one of those that's ready. McKenna, my youngest, is ready. Sophia in first grade, absolutely not. She didn't start reading really reading till second.
Right.
And that's one thing, you know, and that is one of the tough jobs. A lot of schools are having literacy coaches now.
Yes.
Where you have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and our job as a literacy coach is to come in and say, okay, you know what, your child is struggling, so this is what we're going to do for your child. And the problem with that is that they may not have had the foundations because their parents worked. They don't have the support at home. Their parents may not value education. They may value a clean house. They may value music. They may value other things other than the written word. And so I really appreciate that we can add something such as what you guys are saying. You know, we have to add that parental component, and we have to add that the teacher is only responsible for so much learning at such a short time. My final question is, Casey, what is your favorite book and why?
See, you told me you were going to ask me that question. I have 2.
Okay.
Okay. I love the entire Lord of the Rings series. Because when I read that, I was, I think, 7th and 8th grade. I got into it, and just the way he was so descriptive. And I could see in my head. That's the reason why I hated to go see the movie, because that's not the way it's supposed to go.
Exactly.
In my head. And I think that's something that we've lost, is the imagination because of computers and the video games. And so the mass media puts everything out there. We've taken away that art of being able to be creative and imaginative and see those things in our head. My other one was the Great Santini. My dad would talk to me about this movie, and again, it was the descriptive, not the movie, but the book. And again, it was the descriptions in it, just the way he talked about the flying aspect and the guys who was flying through the air, just like, it made me think that was my dad. Flying, even though he just flew in C-130s, wasn't a fighter pilot, but you know, he would come home and talk about flying. But that just made me think that's my dad. I could see my dad doing stuff like that, because he spent 22 years in the Air Force, and had a great time. So when he was away on his TDYs and separated from us, like, you know, it brought a lot of connection to it. So I think a lot of it had to do with just the descriptions going on. But there's plenty of great books out there, like all the S.E. Hinton stuff for the youth of the day. I don't know if they still read Rumblefish and The Outsiders.
Outsiders,
They
Yeah.
read the Outsiders, they sure do.
See, I like Rumblefish too, they should. Yeah.
What about you, Lauren?
I'm not allowed to have a favorite book. I'm a librarian, or have been a librarian.
That's sort of
I
like
can't have a favorite. They're all my favorite. No, but as a child, my favorites were The Secret Garden and Anne of Green Gables. But to expound on what we're talking about, my oldest doesn't like to read. Is now kind of starting to enjoy it. But with having to read at a certain level, I never would have been allowed to pick up The Secret Garden in the 4th grade and read it because it's a 6th and a half grade book or something like that. So that I go back and forth with being appropriate for what they want to read and just being what they want to read.
I'm with you on the let them read, because I hated reading. I really started getting into reading when I was nine years old, and I picked up the Tar the Wanderer series. I'm like, oh wow, this is cool, and I just couldn't. From then, that's when I started reading,
Right.
because I wasn't being forced to read something.
Well, that's one of the new things in the standards is that now there is supposed to be built into the classroom time where children can self-select, and the books should not be targeted towards their level. However, they want the teacher to kind of, in my opinion, be a helicopter parent. No, that's way above your level, you can't have that, or that's, you know.
But if they want to read, give it to them.
Exactly.
See, and that's what I thought as a librarian because I'd give it to them. I didn't care.
They don't want to set the child up to fail, but you know what, the child needs to know where their ceiling is.
Well, and to
And they
struggle
need to
through,
learn
if they
to reach.
really want to read it,
Yes,
they will struggle through it and they will finish it.
exactly. Your favorite book?
Do you know how old I am? Oh my
Yes,
God.
Yes, I
Hey,
do.
the two I just said are
You know,
We've already established it's not the tale of two cities.
yeah. You know, I was just sitting here thinking, I remember as a kid reading the Hardy Boys series, you know?
Yeah,
That kind of book, and I remember that was always fun, because it was kind of like I lived in the country, and it was kind of like there was just that detective kind of thing, you know, that you could just do some of that stuff, because we played outside.
yeah.
we played outside.
Played outside.
But you know, and I never was into like science fiction or any of that kind of stuff, but the craziest thing, when that werewolf stuff came out, like the Twilight,
Yeah.
I just loved it. I loved it. And I
You
never,
are off the panel.
and I never liked any of that stuff. And True Blood on TV, one of my favorite shows, and it's about weird, you know, vampires. And it's like, so I don't know where all that came from, but I guess I always read just a gambit of stuff. Now, when I fly, I always get a James Patterson book.
Those are good.
Read almost everything he's written. That's what I get when I
Even the
fly.
kids' books?
Huh?
Even the kids' books?
I've read one of them, yeah. But yeah, you know, so I guess, you know, just a bunch, so I just to pick out one. But I told you that story about, you know, the Tale of Two Cities that I didn't read when I was supposed to, and, you know, did really bad in English that year because I read something else. But, you know, I'm looking back at my son and my daughter. I hated to read to them. I hated that.
But it's one of the best ways for them to.
And unfortunately, my son still, I don't think he's probably ever read a book. I would really venture to say that he's probably never read a book.
But see, you're not alone in that. There's a lot of parents that don't like to read to their kids.
And I love to read. My
Right.
daughter loves to read. You know, and it's something that I taught. You know, I think my wife would sit down with her. But, you know, and my wife will sit down with the grandchildren and read. Now, it was kind of cool to read with Austin last week, but I didn't have to read to him. He was reading to me.
And that can be just as important.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say thank you for taking time out on your Saturday to interview with me. So just as a summary, I'm glad that you can sympathize, empathize, and understand from a band director's point of view that us poor saps who have to sit behind the desk and don't get all the fun of band, that we do try our best, and that we recognize and appreciate your point of view very much, that any other music